Welcome once again. My name is Yvonne Foisey, and I'm the Senior Director of Admissions at the Rollins School of Public Health. And I'm joined today by my colleague from the Department of Behavioral Sciences and Health Education, who will also introduce herself.
Yes, hi, I'm Megan Sullivan. I'm the Senior Associate Director of Academic Programs in Behavioral Sciences and Health Education. And I'm happy to join Yvonne today about preparing a strong admissions application, as our applications are often reviewed in the departments.
Yes. Well, I know that many of you have lots of questions that we typically receive through email and phone calls, and please do feel free to continue to contact us in that way. And at the end of the session, we will also be welcoming your questions. But to start off, we'd like to go through a little bit of our agenda for today and answer some commonly asked questions that we typically receive in the Office of Admission, and as Megan mentioned, in our academic departments. Hopefully, many of your questions will be answered in this way, but if not, we will be sure to leave some time for questions at the end of the session. So we know that applying to graduate school can be very stressful. And in many ways, you are sharing personal information with our admissions committee. Please know that we are honored to receive your application for admission to the Rollins School of Public Health, and that our faculty committees truly enjoy getting to know a little bit about you through this process. Today's session is really aimed at providing you with some tips and advisement to help you prepare a strong and successful application for admission. So we're going to start by talking a little bit about what does the typical accepted student look like for the Rollins School of Public Health. We'll talk a little bit about holistic admissions. How is it that we truly review applicants, and what does it mean to have a holistic admissions process? And finally, we're going to walk you through every component of the application for admission and talk and provide you with some tips and advisement around how those elements can look and how you can best position yourself as an applicant to the Rollins School of Public Health. And we're going to wrap up by just reminding you of some of our upcoming deadlines so that you are prepared and on track to submit your application in time. So to start with, we are, as I mentioned, going to go through some questions that we typically receive from students going through the process.
Absolutely. So Yvonne, I'm sure you get this question a lot, but what was our incoming class profile for the class that began this past fall?
Oh, absolutely. So the average class profile of the class of 2019 was very strong. When we talk about profiles, we always talk in averages. And so as you're hearing these numbers, likely some of you will say, well, gosh, my scores or my GPA aren't quite there. And some of you will feel like you are exceeding these averages. Remember, in fact, that they are averages. So every year we receive students well above and below these averages as well. We had our strongest incoming class this year and our largest incoming class with 652 students enrolled for the fall of 2019. The average verbal and quantitative scores for the GRE was the same, so 155, and the average analytical writing was 4.0. Another kind of similar number, the average GPA for admitted students for both graduate and undergraduate was 3.4. In terms of the class makeup, 38% of our students self-report that they are students of color. 19% of our students tell us that they're international, and we welcomed students from 38 states and 27 countries. So a wonderfully diverse and talented group of students. So, Megan, what do these numbers mean? If you don't have these numbers, should you even bother to apply?
Yeah, and I think that's a question that comes up so much, because students ask for those averages, and that's why we share them. But like Yvonne said, I really think that they are simply averages. When you have an average, students fall above and both below those numbers. So if you're interested in the Rollins School of Public Health, I would definitely encourage you to apply, regardless of if you're below or above those averages. Even when you think about something like a GPA, when Yvonne cites a 3.4, that doesn't tell us anything about your major, your trend in grades, what faculty are saying about you, and all of those things are taken into consideration in a holistic admissions process. So we would really encourage our students who are interested in Rollins to go ahead and apply regardless of the numbers. They're definitely a piece of the puzzle, but certainly just a piece. And talking a little bit about holistic admissions is because people often say, what is it? It seems to be a buzzword at times. And so when I think about holistic admission, I think about it as really just looking at everything when making an admissions decision. So everything that you take the time to submit to us, and like Yvonne said earlier, we really value all of your personal information that you share with us, all of your experiences that you share with us, and we're looking at all of those different things. So we're looking at your transcript, we're looking at your test scores, we're looking at your letters of recommendation, your personal statement, looking at all of those different things when making an admissions decision, because we really do want students we think that are going to thrive here at Rollins.
And we often hear from students, well, I'm really strong in, my writing, but perhaps my quantitative skills aren't quite there. I always say it is really difficult as an applicant to hit on all cylinders at an extremely high caliber. And so holistic admissions also takes that into consideration, and really not valuing any one component of the application or another. So your GRE scores are valued as strongly as your personal statement and your letters of recommendation. And oftentimes we're very understanding that students have, an inclination or a sort of tendency in one direction or another. Has that been your experience as a reviewer?
Yeah, absolutely. I think students often present stronger in some areas than in others. And I think one thing that we also keep in mind at Rollins is if a student maybe doesn't feel as strong about their quantitative skill set, is we have resources at Rollins to help students with that. So we take that into account too in reviewing applications, that knowing that we have certain resources at Rollins that will allow them to be successful.
That's great, and I think that really is helpful to many of our students that are thinking about this program.
And Yvonne, I know some departments may have some specific admissions requirements. Did you want to speak a little bit about that?
Sure. There are departments that have specific requirements given their emphasis. So as an example, the Department of Biostatistics and Bioinformatics, because of the high level of quantitative work and research that department conducts, they're looking for students that have completed calculus at the college level, and they're also looking for students that have completed linear algebra. So that is, a requirement. And we encourage you as you're completing your SOFIS application, and I hope that by this time everyone has started their SOFIS application, but do be careful to look at individual department requirements because they can differ as you're applying to the different schools and programs, and then even within, as an example, the Rollins School of Public Health, we may have different requirements. On the whole, we require the GRE for international students. We also require the TOEFL, and we also require transcripts as part of the process. Now, when you go through your SOFIS application, you will be entering each class individually that you've ever taken, so it does take a little bit of time. But in addition to that, you do need to submit an official transcript from any school that you have ever attended as an undergraduate. So that's an important component. We require 2 letters of recommendation, a personal statement, and a resume as well. So that is the entire sort of application process that we require as part of our process.
And I think sometimes too, when going back to the GPA, is I think students sometimes ask, well, why do you require the transcript, and why do you require all SOFIS to indicate every course that you've ever taken in undergrad? And one thing is because the GPA is really just such a piece, and when you look at the transcript, it really tells us the whole story. It tells us what classes you took. Maybe you did really well in some areas. Maybe there is an upward trend in grade in other areas. So we're looking at all of those things, and that's why we value the transcript so much, is because it really tells us the whole story that the GPA is not necessarily going to tell us at face. For example, too, mostly we're seeing in cases where there is a trend in grades, an upward trend, especially if a student is considering graduate school, but the reverse can also be true. You could have a strong GPA and a downward trend in grades, and that's something that the admissions committee is also interested in as well. And so we're really looking at the transcript, looking at the courses you took, and how you did in those particular courses.
Excellent. And much like the GPA helps to signal a dedication to study and habits of mind and discipline, the GRE is also a value component of our application process. It is used as part of the process when we allocate merit funding as well. So when we talk about deadlines and priority deadlines, we do use the GRE and GPA and transcript to evaluate students that qualify for merit or academic-based scholarships. But beyond that, the GRE continues to be a tool for us as a research institution to quickly be able to assess quantitative and qualitative skills. So we continue to use the GRE as part of our process. I know that oftentimes students are wondering about whether or not they still have to take the GRE. Absolutely, and it is an important component of the application, but it does not outweigh other components of the application. So, as an example, we sometimes have students that, may have been away from their undergraduate experience for a few years and may not, be in the mindset of taking a standardized score, or perhaps even have, forgotten some of the parts and components that are highlighted. Formulas, yes, all of those things. And so that's an opportunity for our reviewers to pair that information with things that are seen in the transcript, as Megan highlighted. So if your quantitative score doesn't truly reflect your efforts, there will be other points of evidence as part of your admissions application that help us get a full determination of your skills in this area. So we would be looking at individual grades and math courses. We would be looking at your current experience. Do you use quantitative skills in any capacity? So we're really giving all of our students the fullest of consideration and very understanding around the hurdles that something like a GRE score can pose to students, and we're sensitive to that. So that's an important part of our consideration and process.
Absolutely. And talking about those multiple components, I think one that we haven't had a chance to talk about much are the letters of recommendation. In kind of speaking to having both students who may be coming right from undergrad or students who may have been stepped away for a few years, who should we ask them to write those recommendations?
Yes, that is always a really great question from students that we receive. And we do require 2 letters of recommendation. And that may, again, be different depending on the schools and programs that you're applying to. Know that when you apply through SOFIS, you will see 3 letters of recommendation. We will review your application and begin the review process with just 2 letters. So I just wanted to clarify that point that we oftentimes get questions on. So in terms of who should write a letter of recommendation, I always like to joke, not your mom or your neighbor. We know that they're quite fond of you. But in terms of recommenders, if you are a student that is applying directly from an undergraduate experience, it is absolutely fitting and appropriate that both of your letters of recommendation come from faculty. If you are a student that has some years of professional experience, it would be really nice to have at least one of your recommenders represent an organization that you have worked at, and that's very helpful to us as well. And our faculty committees are really looking for evidence of your dedication to public health and of evidence of your discipline to completing a graduate degree at this level. And so your letters of recommendation should truly express that. When asking recommenders for a letter, we have a few tips and advisement that we like to give students. So please give them sufficient time to write you a letter of recommendation. Our priority deadline for admission this year for our graduate program is January 6th. But that means that you should really be submitting your application in, I would say, mid-December. Yeah, and so please give your recommenders that deadline. Let them know that their submission needs to be to SOFIS, where they will upload their letter directly by about mid-December, so that we're not waiting on a letter of recommendation for you. Another tip that I always like to offer is that when you approach someone to ask them for a letter of recommendation, the suggested language should be, can you write a positive letter of recommendation on my behalf? And we say this not because we receive negative letters of recommendation, but think about it. The faculty that you connect with, even in your workplace, the people that you connect with, or perhaps your supervisor, these are all people that are really short on time. And if it's been some years since you've had that faculty member, they may not have a crystal clear recollection of you as a student. And so they might honestly say, I need more information to write you a positive letter of recommendation, or I simply don't have time, because they likely have, something that approximates a generic letter of recommendation, and you really want to cast yourself in the most favorable light possible. So I'd like to use those words of, can you write me a positive letter of recommendation, so that you get honest feedback about that person's bandwidth and capacity to do so. I also like to recommend to students that they bring along a resume or CV to the person that they're asking for a letter of recommendation. If you were in a large lecture hall, or if perhaps this faculty member is endeared to many students at that institution, it might really be helpful for them to know what you have been up to since you took their class. Perhaps they saw, the potential for budding leadership, and they'll be elated to know that that has actually come to fruition in your experience. So I'd like to give people plenty of time, also remind them of your current experiences, and remind them of our deadline, so that you can have letters of recommendation that truly reflect your ability and commitment to the field of public health. Please also do tell your recommenders to mention your interest in public health, and if you need to give them specific information about that, then please do so, so that they have an understanding of what your goals are and how your past skills and training can really prepare you for a career in this field.
Those are all really great tips for letters of recommendation. And I was also thinking about the personal statement.
Yes.
Students often ask, what do you want to hear about in the personal statement? And I think it's hard sometimes, because it is the only time in the application that you're writing about yourself and telling us about yourself. Because otherwise, your transcript speaks for you, your letters of recommendation speak for you, so it's the only time that we hear your voice in the application process. So our admissions committees are very excited to hear from you. And so when students ask, what should I write about, I often say, our faculty are most interested in hearing about what brings you to public health, and what brings you to public health specifically at Rollins. And if you can even drill that down even further, because our review process is done within the departments, what brings you to that specific department at Rollins? Are there faculty? Are there projects? As specific as you can be shows that you've done your research on a particular institution. And so ultimately, schools are looking for students who are interested in being there. And so, as specific as you can be in your personal statement, we want to know about you. We want to know about your journey to public health. Sometimes students ask, well, I may not have very specific public health experiences, but I know that's what I want to do because I've had these other experiences that have brought me to public health, and we absolutely understand that and value that. So please don't be shy in your personal statement. Please let us know, generally what brings you to public health, even if it might not be a specific public health course or a specific public health job. We understand that many skill sets intersect with public health. So please do share those with the committee members in your personal statement. But ultimately, we really want to know about you and why you think Rollins would be a great place for you to spend about 2 years in pursuing a graduate degree.
So Megan, sometimes in reviewing applications, we see that students will tell us a lot about Rollins
Yes.
in their personal statement,
Yes.
or a lot about a faculty member who they admire.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about how that is viewed by admissions
Sure.
committees.
I think it's ultimately a balance. Like I cited, we definitely want to know why you want to come to Rollins, but we want to know about you and how that matches to what we have here at Rollins. So if you're really interested in working with a faculty member who does a lot of work in reproductive health, you may want to speak about your own interest in reproductive health and why it's a good merger of interest at Rollins. So I think ultimately it's a balance, and we really want to know who the student is coming to the class, because ultimately within the context of the class, we also look for students who are going to learn from each other. And so we really try to, in holistic admissions and reading the personal statement, really like students who are going to learn from each other. And our faculty often say they often learn from our students. And so I think it's really important that you tell us about yourselves, because we really value that part of the admissions process.
Excellent. Another topic that comes to mind within this is when students' academic experience has been disrupted or interrupted. And we know that not everyone's trajectory looks like, a straight line or an upwards arrow, and that, life happens even as students are getting their undergraduate degrees, and that there is an opportunity to talk about that as part of your application that isn't necessarily in the personal statement. So what I'm hearing, Megan, is that we want to continue to hear about their interest in public health. In the SOFIS application, you will have an opportunity to write a short statement about any kind of disruption or unusual occurrence that impacted your grades. And remember that our admissions committee, they're human. They're real people that have had, experiences.
And maybe not such a straight trajectory in their own educational path.
Exactly. And that they're understanding of that. But do not leave it to the committee to guess or perhaps have incomplete information and just not know, why perhaps that first semester of college was really tough for you. It's an adjustment period for a lot of undergraduate students. Or perhaps things were going really well and you had that one semester that was really disruptive. I would say it's extremely helpful for our committees to have an understanding of why.
Absolutely. So I would say definitely take advantage of that if there is a reason. If for some reason it was just a difficult semester and you don't have anything to write, that's also, I think, okay as well. But ultimately, we do understand that we are human and the students are human, and so we're understanding of that.
Absolutely. So another section of the application is the resume or CV.
Yes.
And we get a lot of questions around what should be included in a resume for a graduate school application. And you will be asked separately, again, as part of the SOFIS application to list out experiences, but do upload a resume or CV as well, so that our faculty have the benefit of reviewing that. In terms of timeline, anything that has happened throughout your undergraduate years is fair game. I would say before that, if you're listing something, make sure that it is specific to public health or directly transferable if you're going to mention it as part of your professional resume. Like every other part of your application for admission, do watch for grammar and syntax mistakes, because our faculty are really looking at this as a sample and representation of your writing and the way that you present yourself. So that's true of your personal statement as well. And make sure that you are listing opportunities that you've had for research. That anything that relates to travel or study abroad is compelling, particularly if you had an opportunity to observe health disparities or a different health system. Those things are really compelling to our faculty committees. We get a lot of questions also about relevant work experience. And for many of you, this might represent a career change going into public health, or perhaps a sort of career realization with no prior experience. And you might have held jobs or occupations that have nothing to do with public health. On the surface, I always like to say.
Yes.
But do know that as a very human committee of reviewers, we know that you just have to earn money sometimes, and that doing things like working as a barista or babysitting or doing research or clinical research is a great way to earn some income, and that our faculty committees value that. They value students who understand what it means to work. And any time that you are interacting with the public, anytime that you are serving others, anytime that you're having conversation, you're building a skill set, an important one, that is part of public health. Megan, what have you seen in terms of occupations on resumes?
So many. I'm thinking we've had students who've had a very straight trajectory to public health, who maybe either studied public health as undergrads or possibly worked in healthcare consulting prior to coming to us. But I also see students who have done, like Yvonne was mentioning, a wide array of things. I've had students who were in banking and have addressed in their personal statement, I know you're thinking, why public health? And they're able to really artfully say why they're making their career change. And we're very understanding of that. And of course, as Yvonne said, maybe not outwardly public health on the surface, but you will find there's always a relation to public health, it seems, when you kind of dig beyond that surface. And we've also had students who, coming from undergrad without maybe working full-time in between, who've maybe held part-time positions that maybe weren't explicitly in public health. So we've had definitely students who've done a career change. I have a student recently who spent over a decade owning her own photography business, and so was really able to relate how that skill set would carry over to public health and why making that career change at this point in time. So like I said, we definitely have students that it's a very clear trajectory for them, and other students who have had more of a path to public health, and that both are equally appreciated.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. I have a question that's a little bit off script, but it's something that came up. We, of course, did this event live on Tuesday evening here at Rollins, and now we're offering this as a virtual event to all of our participants who were not able to join us for the live event. And there's been a lot of questions around admissions as a profession, and certainly some news media attention around this topic. As such, we really like to be transparent about our process and even the people that review applications. So as a reviewer, can you walk us through who are reviewers? How do you approach reading an application?
Sure. Our reviewers, they can be academic staff like myself, or also faculty as well, but overall just a strong interest in understanding the class that is coming in each year. So really, it's not a position anybody's assigned or anything like that. So the people reviewing applications have a strong interest in reviewing the applications. I also know in our department, we ensure that people are trained to read applications and to receive all that important information that you're sending to us.
I'm really going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
For how many years have you been reviewing applications, either at this institution or others?
Sure. So actually, probably over 12 years I've been actively involved in reviewing applications, and if you follow the B-Sheet Instagram account, I think my profile is going to go live soon, and my interesting fact that I'll release now is that I've read almost 30,000 applications for admission. So I've really gotten to know a lot of students in this process, and I wouldn't review applications if I didn't truly enjoy it. And so it's a part of the admissions process that I really enjoy, is getting to know applicants and getting to know them in the process. And really what I enjoy most about this position in particular is because we really see students at the point of application, and I'm also there at their graduation. So seeing it full cycle, and to see students who really talking them through the application process and to see them walk across the stage is just a really great part about this position.
So hopefully this information gives you some insight, some advisement around how to prepare your own application for admission. And we'd now like to hear from you. Please use your chat function to send us some questions. And as you're sending the questions, I'm actually going to be toggling through them. So you'll see me clicking away here as I'm hoping to answer your particular questions. But do go ahead and send us those so that we can be able to answer any questions that you have about the application process. And as those questions are coming in, I am going to throw one more question out there to my colleague, Megan. We oftentimes hear a lot about being a top 5 school. We are rated top 5 among schools and programs of public health by U.S. News and World Report, and we're certainly, proud of our standing. What does that mean from an admissions process? Are we looking to keep people out? How do we approach
that's
that?
a great question. I think we're not looking to keep people out. We're looking for reasons to admit, by and large. So we're often looking for reasons to welcome a student to the Rollins School of Public Health rather than to look for reasons to say no. So we're looking for reasons to say yes rather than say no is what I would say overall.
Yes, yeah. And I think that that's an important message to get out to our applicant pool, that we're really just looking for people that can do the work and, have a strong passion and desire to do this work, and that, largely our committees are made up of folks that have a long tenure of commitment to the work of admissions, to the work of public health. Our faculty truly dedicate their life to this work. And so they generally want to see that you too have that interest and commitment. So it looks like we have some great questions that have come in. We have a question around how many applications we receive. I can tell you that this year we received, almost 2,000 applications for admission. So it was quite a busy year for us. And we have another question around, and perhaps this is one you can answer, Megan. Does each application go directly to the specific department, or is there a process before it is sent to, for example, the BSHE department?
Yeah, great question. I think students often wonder, are there cutoffs used or anything before they even get to the department? And at Rollins, we're truly, truly committed to the holistic process. So there is no vetting process prior to getting to the department. Each department is going to review the entire application in its whole, but prior to making a decision. And I don't think we had a chance to talk about this, but when you do apply to Rollins, you do apply to one department. You'll also be prompted to add up to 2 additional departments. So if for some reason you aren't admitted to your first choice department, you'll automatically be moved to your second choice department for review. And so I think that's also important to keep in mind, is that even when that happens, your entire file moves to your second choice department as well. So there is no vetting process prior to even going to your first choice department, or even as you move through the process.
Yes, thank you. Another question around consideration for merit scholarships. So would students with a lower GPA or GRE scores be applicants for scholarships or fellowships if they have financial need or a long history of research expertise? Please know that our process for review for academic scholarships is absolutely holistic, just as our admissions process is, and that we are looking to have students that receive full funding through merit scholarships represent a variety of different academic departments, as well as research areas and even experience. So know that you will absolutely be considered. Having said that, we do consider academic achievement as part of the criteria for merit-based scholarships, and that typically those students represent the top 2% of applicants in any given year. And that cohort does look very different each year, so very difficult to predict there. In addition to merit scholarships, the Rollins School of Public Health is also committed to providing access by providing students with institutional awards that reflect academic achievement and student need as well. So when you are applying by the priority deadline of January 6th, you are also in consideration for institutional grants. And as we're talking about deadlines and applications, please also remember that for many of these institutional awards, we also do require the FAFSA. The FAFSA has been open since October 1, and we do highly encourage that students complete the FAFSA by December 31st for consideration. So make sure that you're getting both of those elements in to give yourself the best consideration for both merit and institutional awards.
And Yvonne, I'm seeing a question here about, I briefly mentioned quantitative help we have here at Rollins, and to just go in, look further into depth about that is we do have an academic resource center specifically here at Rollins. What I think is one of the great things about Rollins is that we have a lot of these centers that are specific to Rollins. So you don't need to walk across Emory's campus to access academic resources or career services or anything of the like. So the Academic Resource Center here at Rollins consists of both writing assistance as well as quantitative assistance. And so we have tutors on both sides of those equations, and they host walk-in hours as well as individual appointments. And all of those services are included under your tuition at Rollins, which I think is great.
Oh, that's very helpful to students, particularly because we do have, a common core. And so there are classes that all of you will be required to take, like biostats.
In the same semester.
In the same semester. So students find that help particularly useful as they're navigating some of these courses that maybe they haven't had exposure to in quite some time. So Megan, one of our reviewers, do you have a specific preference over a resume or CV?
No, we do not. We're really just looking for you to concisely, put down your experiences on paper.
Okay, great. And then we have another question around how many letters of recommendation will actually review. So SOFIS does require 3, but your application will be considered complete if there are 2 there. So as soon as there are 2 letters of recommendation, provided that all of your other materials are there, SOFIS will forward that application to the Rollins School of Public Health, and we will forward on to the academic department if all the other elements are complete. So be sure that you're asking your top 2 recommenders to meet that deadline quite readily. And of course, if the third one does come in transition, it too gets uploaded to the academic department for their review. But there is a chance that your application might just be reviewed with 2. So a question around summer classes taken at another school, but they were included as part of the transcript.
Yes, we will need all of the transcripts from all the institutions where you took coursework, even if it shows up as transferred credit on another institution's transcript. So any courses you took throughout your undergraduate time, we will need the original transcript from all of those institutions.
Absolutely. And for any of you that might have had the experience of traveling abroad for some of your undergraduate work and experience, or perhaps your family lived abroad for a time and you attended a institution outside of the United States, or perhaps you're an international student who is applying from an institution outside of the United States. For all of those scenarios, we will require a WES evaluation, and WES is the World Education Service, and essentially they are credentialing your transcript, if you will, and making sure that that experience translates to our academic program. So that is a required component of your application, and be sure to submit that request to WES in time for your application to be considered. So we have another question around how do we determine which 2 letters? It really is timing. Yeah,
it's truly timing. If the application completes around with two letters and those first 2 go to the committee, it truly is timing. I have had students who maybe even upload more than 3 prior to it even making its way to committee. And so we won't just choose 2 or choose 3 to review. If all 4 are there, all 4 will be reviewed.
Absolutely. So someone's looking for more specific information around the personal statement. Do know that we will also have a dedicated session next week to preparing a strong personal statement, so we'll go really in depth with that. But Megan, did you have a few more tips to add in terms of how to make yourself stand out?
Sure. I think, of course, a well-written personal statement is always valued. So you definitely want the personal statement to be in your own words, but you should feel free to have somebody read it over. I know when I even write some of my own things, if you read it so many times, you often put words back in that you didn't necessarily know you missed and things like that. So definitely have somebody read it, and you want it to be well-written. And you want it to be well-written in your own words. I think things that can make you stand out is to not have it be a reflection of your resume entirely. And so often I see personal statements, and it's not a detriment to an application, that feel very much like a reflection of the resume. So really use that opportunity to build in why those experiences have brought you to public health rather than just listing them.
Yeah, thank you. And this ties nicely to a question we're receiving about an interest in a particular academic department, but also in the overall sort of discipline of public health and how to balance that in the personal statement. Megan, do you have comments about, when students write about BSHE specifically, or, more broadly their interest in public health?
Yeah, I think students take it both ways. We're always interested to know why BSHE specifically. So sometimes that means tweaking your essay a little bit from school to school. And we totally understand that. We totally understand that you're applying to more than one institution or one program. And so we really are interested in public health and your career goals, but also why BSHE? And so we are interested in those specifics.
Absolutely. So we have some questions around test scores, and is it necessary to have the GRE, or will we accept the MCAT? We will absolutely accept the MCAT, and there are in fact a few exceptions to our GRE requirement. So any student that can submit an MCAT within the last 5 years is welcome to do that in lieu of the GRE. In addition to that, if you are a dual degree candidate and applying to our School of Law or School of Medicine, you can of course submit the MCAT, but also our School of Nursing or the Candler School of Theology, our School of Business. This is a nice big campus with lots of resources for students here and many opportunities for dual degrees. But if you're already taking an exam such as the LSAT, the MCAT, or the GMAT, you may submit that in lieu of the GRE as well. Any student that has also completed a PhD from an accredited university can also have that GRE requirement waived. You must have the entire PhD designation. So unfortunately, we cannot accept any student who is still working on their dissertation as part of that waiver. And BSHE has an exception to that as well, if you'd like to talk about
sure.
it.
And that's why it's so important to look at the individual admissions requirements for each department. For BSHE specifically, we don't have specific admissions requirements, but we can say that for a student who's earned a prior master's degree, in addition to a PhD, a student can choose to waive the GRE requirement in their admissions process if they would like.
All right, great. So to our great question around, are you toast if you do not have prior public health experience? In short, you are not toast.
Absolutely not.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely not. Like I think both of us had said earlier, that all experiences are valued, and the experience may not be public health on its surface, but if you dig a little bit deeper, you'll find a skill set that is valuable to public health. As Yvonne said, engaging with the public, working within a team, those are all things that are certainly valued.
Absolutely. So we have a couple of questions on the length of the appropriate length of a resume. I always like to say that I'm quite along in my years and professional work experience, and my resume is about 2.5 pages. What do you think, Megan, for length?
I agree. I think somewhere between 1 and 2 pages is appropriate, even for students who have publications and presentations. 1 to 2 pages is usually pretty appropriate.
Absolutely. And so for students asking about letters of recommendation and the order in which they're reviewed and how many we will review, know that it really is a timing thing. So please feel free to select 2 very strong letters of recommendation, and then if you have an additional third, it will absolutely be considered. There is no way to ensure which 2 letters of recommendation will be submitted or seen first. So if you have a strong preference for 2 of your recommenders, definitely lead with that and know that those 2 will absolutely be considered. And if you feel that 3 letters of recommendation would really strengthen your application, then go ahead and send those 3, and we will be sure to consider them as well. So Megan, a tricky question, but a good one. I like it, Martha. Are there some departments which are more selective than others?
I wouldn't necessarily use the word selective. I think that different departments are looking for different things when considering students. So I would encourage you to definitely not focus so much. Students often ask, which is the best department which is the easiest department to get into, or what department do I have the best chance of getting into? And I think due to the nature of the Rollins review process is we really would ask students to take a self-inventory and ask, which department do I really fit? Which skill set do I really want to learn? And when we think about that, look at really the courses offered in each department. And so when thinking about that, if that means that epidemiology is your first choice or behavioral sciences and health education is your first choice, absolutely put that as your first choice. And if for some reason a department feels that you might not be the right fit or another department may be the best fit, you also have the opportunity, like we were saying earlier, to put down a second and a third choice as well. So really make those decisions around what you think that you would like to learn during your graduate years.
Absolutely. And, you know, some of the best advice that I received as I was leaving graduate school and coming to age and my own professional experience was don't go against the grain.
Yeah.
You know, find out and spend some time discovering what comes naturally to you, what you're good at, what you like, what is the population that you're interested in working with. I always like to say if you're really interested in data and if that kind of analysis and sort of pursuit of understanding really interests you and you can spend time dedicated to that at a desk with huge amounts of concentration and that really excites you, then lean in that direction. But if you see yourself out there, you know, enacting change and being a change agent, working on the field, then find an academic department that really has opportunities that matches that skill set because you want to make sure that you're preparing yourself for something that is lasting and that will fit with your natural inclination.
And I think too, when you're thinking about applying to departments, don't necessarily have to feel like they're very siloed, and that you're committing to just doing this one area for 2 years while you're in public health or even after you graduate. Our students are allowed to take courses throughout the Rollins School of Public Health regardless of department that they're in, and actually across Emory University as well. So we have many students throughout departments take classes in the business school and the law school, and actually there's actually a Spanish for healthcare professionals class offered in the nursing school. It's very popular with our students.
Yeah, that's great. We have a couple of questions around merit scholarships, and so I'm going to try to answer a few of them all at once. You do not have to submit the FAFSA to be considered for our merit or academic-based scholarships. That is not necessary as long as you apply by the deadline. So that is something that is key to remember and really does come up every year. And hopefully that helps to answer some of the questions that were sent in. So you also do not need to directly apply for any scholarships. So you are automatically considered for everything that we offer as long as you're applying by that priority deadline. However, if you are interested in receiving an institutional grant, some of which are need-based, then we highly recommend that you also submit the FAFSA. One such program is our Rollins Earn and Learn program, our REAL program, which offers students the opportunity to gain professional work experience in the field of public health as you earn your Rollins degree, your MPH or MSPH. This is a signature program for the Rollins School of Public Health, and the funding actually comes from the Rollins School of Public Health, which makes it very attractive to our partner employers. As such, it is allocated on a first-come, first-served basis. So this is an example of an award that does require the FAFSA and is allocated based on when you submitted the FAFSA. So please know that for some awards, we do encourage that early submission for consideration. So Megan, our student Maria is asking, how is internship experience counted in our selection process?
Yeah, I think all experiences are equally valued. Research as well as internship experience, and I think it just speaks to what the student has been interested in and had the opportunity to do prior to the application process. So we are really looking at all experiences, and none is valued above another.
Okay, that sounds great. And, that is a question that we often get, especially being, a research institution. And students have a variety of different experiences. What is the best thing to highlight in the personal statement? We've talked about personal statement a lot, but this keeps coming up. I think we're going to have a hearty audience next week as well.
I do think you are going to have quite the audience next week. I think the best thing to highlight is the thing that you think you should highlight about yourself. We're not looking for the same thing to be in every single personal statement. So if you feel your reason to come to public health is particularly compelling, or a past experience is particularly compelling, that is what we want to hear about. So usually when students are passionate about something, that's what comes through in their personal statement, rather than what they think the admissions committee wants to hear about.
Great. We have a very thoughtful question around non-traditional students. And so one of the things that we like to emphasize is that every student looks different and every background looks different. Some students come to us having studied, as Megan mentioned, public health as an undergraduate degree. We like to call this a discovery profession. I truly doubt it that any student in their second grade classroom looked up at their teacher and said, I want to be a public health practitioner.
Yes.
And so to that end, almost all of our students are non-traditional in some way. 60% of our students are coming to us directly from undergraduate experiences with varied backgrounds and varied majors as well. We see everything from theater and music to neuroscience in our applicant pool, and each are weighed and considered with significant consideration. And for students that have spent some time working, know that our average age range for admission is anywhere from 21 to students in their mid-50s. We have clinicians and practitioners that come back to augment their professional and educational experience with an MPH. So sometimes we have physicians in our classrooms, and that we welcome that. I think on the whole, admissions committees truly value students that can bring a unique perspective, and in particular an informed perspective from having had the opportunity to be in the working world. Would you agree, Megan?
Yes, absolutely. We definitely value that. And like I said, students learn from each other, and then both faculty learn from students as well as students from faculty.
Absolutely. A quick question on deferrals. Students that are admitted to the Rollins School of Public Health may defer admission for 1 year. In the year that you choose to enroll, you will automatically be reconsidered for funding opportunities in that year and within the context of that pool. So I hope that that's helpful to you. So we have a question from Amy that I think comes up quite a bit.
Yes.
What if you truly don't yet know specifically what you want to do within the field of public health, which is highly interdisciplinary?
Yes. I think that comes up so much, and that's something that's really valued, and our faculty are excited about learning about you and helping you figure that out while you're here. And so that is why we have things like the applied practice experience, and then a very defined 2 years of coursework, is because you'll have the opportunity to explore what you like, what you maybe don't like, and to try new things. We really encourage our students to be open. So even our students who come in with a very, very specific interest, one of the first conversations we have with them is about being open to new experiences. There may be research areas in public health that you may not even be aware of, or perhaps are even emerging at this time.
Absolutely. And we have some questions around interviews, and while we would love to meet each of you individually and learn about your experiences and about your interest in this field, unfortunately we do not provide interviews, and so your personal statement is really your opportunity to personalize this experience and to in many ways highlight that which we cannot glean from your application for admission. How do we feel about students retaking the GRE, Megan?
Sure. So we will look at all scores that you send us. I think the question relates to what if one set of scores is sent prior to the priority deadline and then another set of scores comes? if we're reviewing applications prior to that priority deadline, we're obviously going to take into consideration the scores that you have on file. If then other ones come in while we're in that review process, we're happy to take those into consideration. I will say for our specific department, unless there's a huge shift in scores, new scores are likely to not change the admissions decision overall.
Absolutely. We're getting some questions on when you will hear about your admissions status, which is a great question and something we did not mention. Typically, admissions decisions begin to roll out in mid to late January. So give us some time to get all of those things in and registered here, and you'll be hearing toward the end of January, I would say. If at any time you have a question about the status of your application, do email us at sbhadmissions@emory.edu, and one of us is happy to get back to you and let you know that everything is here. And we also correspond regularly with students who may be missing elements of their application for admission, so you will be prompted if there is still something missing. However, if you are interested in merit consideration because of that deadline, do feel free to be in touch with us so that we can verify that your application is complete. We have time for a couple of more quick questions. Do we offer graduate housing?
We do not offer graduate student housing at Emory specifically, but Rollins does provide a lot of resources around finding housing in the Atlanta area. There are some apartments that are specifically for graduate students in the general area. Some students choose to live in houses. What I think is really great is over the summer, Rollins does put out a really great booklet of how to look for housing and the price ranges for those housing options.
Absolutely. And two more quick questions as we wrap up. One from an international student. If you received a degree from a U.S. accredited institution, you are not having to submit that TOEFL score. Thank you for that question. And another question regarding where to send information and where to send transcripts. Please know that everything should be sent through SOFIS. So we are not able to receive transcripts or resumes or letters of recommendation here directly at the Rollins School of Public Health, and everything should be sent through that SOFIS portal. It has truly been a pleasure chatting with you today and answering some of your questions and sharing some tips and advisement for a strong application for admission. Please join us next Thursday to learn a little bit more about how you can improve your personal statement, and we will be providing some tips and advisement to help guide that as well. As always, we are here to answer your questions and to help guide you through this process. Please know that we are committed to this work and to helping our students gain access to our program. We look forward to seeing you in the future, and this recorded virtual session will be sent out to participants as well so that you can watch it at your leisure. So thanks and have a great day. Please be in touch, and we look forward to connecting soon.